Imagine stepping into a world where kindness isn't a strength, it's a weakness. Where being pure-hearted doesn't bring rewards but ridicule, exploitation, and heartbreak. In Dostoevsky's masterpiece The Idiot, we meet Prince Myshkin, a man so good, so unshakably compassionate, that society brands him an idiot. But was he truly foolish? Or did he reveal the uncomfortable truths we're too afraid to face? In today's world, we often celebrate virtues like kindness and empathy. Yet, think about it. How often are those same traits dismissed as naivety? How many nice guys are overlooked for promotions, left out of relationships, or taken advantage of simply because they refuse to play by the cutthroat rules society values? Myshkin's story, though written in 1869, feels eerily familiar in the modern age. What does it really mean to be good in a world that seems to punish goodness? Are good people doomed to fail in a society that rewards selfishness, ambition, and deceit? And most importantly, how can we, as individuals, learn from Myshkin's tragic yet profound journey? In this video, we're diving deep into the heart of Dostoevsky's The Idiot, exploring not just its story but the lessons it offers us today. You'll discover how this tale of misunderstood goodness sheds light on our everyday struggles, from relationships and ambition to identity and morality. We'll unpack the tensions between idealism and realism, compassion and clarity, and why balancing these forces is key to surviving and thriving in our flawed world. So, stay tuned. By the end of this video, you might find yourself questioning everything you thought you knew about what it means to be truly good. Is it a gift, a curse, or something far more complex? Dostoevsky's The Idiot offers an intricate and unsettling exploration of human nature through the interactions between Prince Myshkin and those he encounters. Set against the backdrop of 19th-century Russian society, a period marked by ambition, corruption, and deep social divides, the novel uses its characters to reveal the complexities and contradictions of morality, love, and free will. Myshkin, often referred to as the Idiot, enters this turbulent world not as a savior but as a moral lens that exposes the flaws of everyone around him. His pure-hearted nature contrasts sharply with the selfishness, greed, and emotional chaos that dominate the lives of those he meets. This dissonance creates a tragic cycle where his goodness, instead of healing, inadvertently unravels those he seeks to help. The first character to illustrate this dynamic is Nastasia Filipovna, a woman shaped by trauma and consumed by self-destruction. Nastasia's tragic story is rooted in her exploitation by Totsky, a wealthy and manipulative man who groomed her and now wishes to discard her. She is fully aware of the moral decay of the society she inhabits, and her behavior often reflects a desire to defy and expose its hypocrisies. In one infamous scene, Nastasia disrupts a party by throwing a massive sum of money into the fire, symbolizing her disdain for the materialism and greed that define those around her. Myshkin's unwavering compassion for her, however, introduces a new kind of challenge. When he declares his love and offers her a chance at redemption, she cannot accept it. Nastasia views herself as irreparably broken and unworthy of the unconditional love Myshkin offers. Her repeated rejection of him is not only a rejection of love, but also a rejection of hope, a refusal to believe that goodness can prevail in a world as corrupted as hers. Rogozin, on the other hand, represents the destructive power of obsessive love. His fixation on Nastasia borders on possession, and his emotions swing wildly between adoration and rage. Unlike Myshkin, whose love is selfless and redemptive, Rogozin's love is selfish and consuming. His obsession with Nastasia ultimately leads to tragedy, culminating in her murder, a crime that starkly contrasts with Myshkin's attempts to save her. Rogozin's actions highlight the dangers of unchecked passion and the way love, when tainted by jealousy and control, can devolve into violence. Yet, even in the face of this horrific act, Myshkin's response is one of compassion. He comforts Rogozin in his despair, sitting beside him and forgiving him for his crime. This act of forgiveness underscores Myshkin's Christ-like nature, but also illustrates the limits of such goodness in a world that continues to spiral into chaos. Aglaia Panshin, meanwhile, embodies society's confusion and ambivalence toward moral purity. She is drawn to Myshkin's sincerity and innocence, but is also deeply frustrated by his inability or unwillingness to conform to societal expectations. Aglaya's interactions with Myshkin are laced with both admiration and mockery. She criticizes him for his passivity and selflessness, seeing these traits as weaknesses rather than virtues. Aglaya's internal conflict mirrors the broader societal response to Myshkin, a mixture of reverence for his moral integrity and disdain for his impracticality. Her family, too, views Myshkin with skepticism. They cannot reconcile his purity with the harsh realities of the world, and their rejection of him underscores the incompatibility of idealism in a society driven by pragmatism and power. As the novel progresses, it becomes clear that each character's interaction with Myshkin serves as a mirror, reflecting their deepest flaws and insecurities. Myshkin's kindness and moral clarity force them to confront parts of themselves they would rather ignore. For Nastasia, this means grappling with her feelings of worthlessness and her belief that she is beyond saving. For Rogozin, it means facing the destructive nature of his love and the violence it engenders. For Aglaya, it means questioning her own values and the societal norms she has internalized. In each case, Myshkin's presence acts as both a catalyst and a revelation, exposing the fragility of their facades and the depth of their struggles. However, Myshkin's goodness is not without its own consequences. His inability to set boundaries or assert himself allows others to take advantage of him. His relatives exploit his inheritance, and he repeatedly puts himself in harm's way to help those who ultimately reject him. This self-sacrificial nature, while admirable, also contributes to his downfall. Myshkin's failure to navigate the complexities of human relationships, his refusal to adapt to the realities of a flawed world, leaves him vulnerable to manipulation and betrayal. His descent into madness at the novel's end is a poignant reminder of the cost of unyielding virtue in a world that does not value it. The chaos of The Idiot is not confined to its characters, but extends to its broader themes of free will and societal decay. Dostoevsky presents a world where individuals are trapped by their desires, traumas, and societal expectations. Despite their apparent freedom, the characters' choices are often dictated by forces beyond their control, be it greed, passion, or a need for validation. This deterministic view of human behavior raises unsettling questions about the nature of free will and the possibility of redemption. Can people truly change, or are they doomed to repeat their mistakes? Myshkin's efforts to guide others toward a better path suggest that change is possible, but the novel's tragic conclusion casts doubt on whether such efforts can ever succeed. What makes The Idiot particularly compelling is its refusal to offer easy answers or tidy resolutions. Dostoevsky's characters are messy, contradictory, and deeply human. They oscillate between hope and despair, love and hatred, selflessness and selfishness. This emotional volatility is both their downfall and their humanity, making them relatable despite their flaws. The novel's exploration of these contradictions captures the complexity of life itself, a life that is as chaotic and unpredictable as the characters who inhabit Dostoevsky's world. In reflecting on The Idiot, one cannot help but see parallels to modern life. The tensions between idealism and pragmatism, love and obsession, individuality and societal conformity remain as relevant today as they were in Dostoevsky's time. Myshkin's struggles mirror those of anyone who has ever tried to live authentically in a world that demands compromise. His story serves as both a cautionary tale and an inspiration, reminding us of the value of kindness and the courage it takes to remain true to one's principles, even when the world seems determined to tear them down. Ultimately, The Idiot is not just a story about a man who is too good for his world, it is a story about all of us and the choices we make in the face of chaos. Prince Myshkin stands as a perplexing figure in Dostoevsky's The Idiot, embodying a level of goodness so profound that it borders on incomprehensible to those around him. His kindness is not the measured, calculated benevolence that society expects, but a radical and almost naive purity that transcends conventional morality. This unyielding goodness leads him to forgive betrayals, aid those who harm him, and sacrifice his own happiness for the benefit of others. Yet, This very quality, intended as a virtue, becomes the source of his alienation, suffering, and eventual downfall. One of the most striking examples of Myshkin's unreasonable goodness is his response to Rogozin, a man driven by obsessive jealousy. Rogozin's passion for Nastasia Filipovna consumes him, warping his sense of morality and leading him to attempt to murder Myshkin in a fit of rage. Yet Myshkin, rather than retaliating or seeking justice, responds with compassion. He forgives Rogozin without hesitation, extending not only mercy but also friendship. Later, when Rogozin's destructive love culminates in Nastasia's murder, Myshkin again chooses empathy over condemnation, staying by Rogozin's side and comforting him in his grief. This radical forgiveness, while admirable, defies societal norms and expectations. Most people, when faced with such betrayal or harm, would demand retribution or at least distance themselves from the source of danger. Myshkin's actions challenge these instincts, offering a vision of unconditional love that many find unsettling. However, this extraordinary capacity for forgiveness is not celebrated by those around him. Instead, it is seen as a sign of weakness. Aglaya, one of Myshkin's love interests, encapsulates society's reaction to his goodness by calling him an idiot. Her frustration stems from his refusal to assert himself or confront those who exploit him. To her, Myshkin's passivity and selflessness are not virtues but flaws that render him incapable of navigating the complexities of the real world. She mocks his inability to protect his own interests and rejects the idea that such unyielding goodness has any practical value. This sentiment is echoed by others, who see Myshkin not as a moral exemplar but as a naive dreamer, ill-equipped for the harsh realities of life. The exploitation of Myshkin's kindness becomes a recurring theme throughout the novel. His relatives, upon learning of his inheritance, circle him like vultures, eager to manipulate him for financial gain. Myshkin, true to his nature, offers them assistance without hesitation, even as their motives become increasingly transparent. This pattern of exploitation extends to his interactions with Nastasia and Aglaya, both of whom test the limits of his patience and compassion. Nastasia, consumed by self-loathing and a desire for self-destruction, repeatedly rejects Myshkin's attempts to save her, yet he persists in his efforts to redeem her. Aglaya, torn between admiration and disdain for Myshkin, oscillates between seeking his approval and mocking his ideals. In each case, Myshkin's goodness becomes a tool for others to manipulate or scorn, highlighting the difficulty of maintaining moral purity in a world that rewards selfishness and cunning. The central question that arises from Myshkin's experiences is whether it is noble or foolish to remain good in a world that punishes virtue. On one hand, Myshkin's unwavering commitment to kindness and forgiveness sets him apart as a beacon of moral integrity. He refuses to compromise his principles, even when doing so would protect him from harm or ridicule. This steadfastness is deeply inspiring, suggesting that true goodness requires the courage to withstand society's judgment. On the other hand, Myshkin's inability or unwillingness to adapt to the realities of human behavior leaves him vulnerable to exploitation and heartbreak. His idealism, while noble, often blinds him to the consequences of his actions and the motives of those around him. In examining Myshkin's character, it is important to consider the broader societal context in which he operates. Dostoevsky's Russia was a society deeply divided by class, ambition, and moral decay. Myshkin's radical goodness stands in stark contrast to the greed, vanity, and cruelty that dominate his surroundings. His presence exposes the moral failings of those he encounters, forcing them to confront their own shortcomings. For Nastasia, Myshkin's love serves as a painful reminder of her lost innocence and the possibility of redemption she believes she can never achieve. For Rogozin, Myshkin's compassion highlights the destructiveness of his own obsessive love. For Aglaya, Myshkin's sincerity challenges her cynicism and forces her to question the values she has internalized. In each case, Myshkin's goodness acts as a mirror, reflecting the inner turmoil of those around him. Yet this role as a moral mirror comes at a great cost. Myshkin's goodness isolates him, leaving him misunderstood and alienated from the very society he seeks to uplift. His inability to assert himself or set boundaries leads to repeated betrayals and disappointments, eroding his mental and emotional stability. By the end of the novel, Myshkin's idealism has been thoroughly shattered, and he retreats into a state of madness, unable to reconcile his vision of goodness with the harsh realities of the world. This tragic outcome underscores the difficulty, if not the impossibility, of living as a truly good person in an imperfect world. The tragedy of Myshkin's story lies not only in his personal suffering but also in the societal rejection of his ideals. Dostoevsky uses Myshkin's experiences to critique a world that values power, wealth, and self-interest over compassion and moral integrity. Through Myshkin, Dostoevsky poses a provocative question. Is it the individual's responsibility to adapt to a flawed society? Or should society strive to accommodate and protect those who embody its highest ideals? Myshkin's failure to thrive in such a world suggests that the burden of change lies not with the individual but with the collective. A society that cannot embrace and support goodness is, in Dostoevsky's view, fundamentally broken. This tension between individual morality and societal norms remains relevant today. Consider the modern workplace, where individuals who prioritize collaboration and fairness are often overshadowed by those who play office politics or prioritize personal gain. Acts of kindness and vulnerability are frequently misinterpreted as signs of weakness, leaving well-intentioned individuals vulnerable to exploitation. Similarly, in personal relationships, those who approach others with unconditional love and trust may find themselves taken advantage of or dismissed as naive. These contemporary examples echo Myshkin's experiences, highlighting the enduring challenges of living as a good person in a world that does not always value goodness. Ultimately, Myshkin's story is a powerful exploration of the complexities of morality and the human condition. His unwavering goodness challenges the reader to reflect on their own values and the ways in which society rewards or punishes certain behaviors. While Myshkin's tragic fate may seem to affirm the futility of idealism, it also serves as a reminder of the transformative power of compassion and forgiveness. Even in the face of betrayal and rejection, Myshkin's goodness leaves a lasting impact on those he encounters, planting seeds of change that may one day bear fruit. In this way, Dostoevsky suggests that while the path of goodness is fraught with difficulty, it is also one of profound significance and hope. Dostoevsky's portrayal of Prince Myshkin is not just a study in character. It is an examination of the uncomfortable truths about humanity and society that remain as relevant today as in the 19th century. Through Myshkin, Dostoevsky highlights the paradox of goodness, the contradictions of morality, and the burdens of free will. These themes are woven into the fabric of The Idiot with unflinching honesty, forcing readers to confront their own beliefs about virtue, agency, and human nature. Goodness, as Dostoevsky portrays it in Myshkin, is not the celebrated quality society often pretends to value. Instead, it is a liability. Myshkin's kindness and moral purity, rather than elevating him, set him apart as an outsider, making him a target for manipulation and ridicule. His compassion for others, which should be his greatest strength, becomes his Achilles heel in a world driven by power, ambition, and self-interest. This is evident in the way Myshkin's relatives seek to exploit his inheritance. They see him not as a person but as an opportunity, and his willingness to accommodate their demands only encourages their greed. In any pragmatic sense, Myshkin's goodness is a disadvantage because it leaves him vulnerable to those who prioritize their own gain over his well-being. This dynamic is not unique to Dostoevsky's fictional world. Even in contemporary society, acts of selflessness are often misunderstood or exploited. Consider the workplace, where individuals who prioritize collaboration and empathy may find themselves overlooked for promotions in favor of those who assert their dominance or play office politics. Similarly, in personal relationships, people who approach others with unconditional kindness may be perceived as naive or taken for granted. Myshkin's experiences resonate because they reflect the harsh reality that in a competitive world, goodness is not always rewarded. Instead, It is often seen as weakness, a vulnerability to be exploited, rather than a virtue to be admired. Dostoevsky does not stop at portraying goodness as a liability. He delves deeper into the contradictions of morality itself. Myshkin's interactions with the other characters reveal that even those who claim to value virtue are often repelled by it when faced with the real thing. Aglaya, for example, is simultaneously drawn to and frustrated by Myshkin's sincerity. She admires his moral integrity but mocks him for his inability to assert himself or navigate the complexities of social life. Her contradictory feelings toward Myshkin mirror the broader societal response to goodness, a mix of reverence and resentment. People want to believe in the ideal of virtue, but when confronted with someone who embodies it, they struggle to reconcile their admiration with their own insecurities and flaws. This moral contradiction is also evident in Rogosin and Nastasia. Rogosin, consumed by his obsessive love for Nastasia, recognizes Myshkin's purity and respects it even as he despises it. His jealousy drives him to acts of violence that starkly contrast with Myshkin's forgiveness and compassion. Similarly, Nastasia, plagued by self-loathing, cannot accept the love Myshkin offers her because she sees it as a judgment of her own unworthiness. She rejects his attempts to save her, not because she doubts his sincerity, but because his goodness magnifies her own sense of moral failure. In each of these cases, Myshkin's virtue acts as a mirror, reflecting the moral contradictions of those around him and forcing them to confront parts of themselves they would rather ignore. The weight of free will is another theme that permeates The Idiot. Dostoevsky's characters are not simply victims of their circumstances. They struggle with choices that reveal the complexity of human agency. Myshkin, despite his unwavering goodness, is not immune to the consequences of his decisions. His attempts to help Nastasia, for instance, are driven by a genuine desire to save her, but they also stem from a sense of moral obligation that blinds him to her own autonomy. In trying to impose his vision of redemption on her, Myshkin inadvertently contributes to her suffering. This raises uncomfortable questions about the nature of free will. Is it truly possible to act selflessly? Or are all actions ultimately influenced by personal desires and societal pressures? Rogosin and Nastasia exemplify this struggle in different ways. Rogosin's obsessive love for Nastasia drives him to choices that he knows are destructive, yet he feels powerless to resist. His passion overwhelms his reason, leading him to commit acts that are both inevitable and deeply tragic. Nastasia, on the other hand, is trapped by her past and her perception of herself as unworthy of love. Her choices are not entirely her own, shaped as they are by the trauma she has endured and the societal expectations placed upon her. Dostoevsky uses these characters to illustrate the tension between free will and determinism, suggesting that while people have the capacity to choose, their choices are often constrained by forces beyond their control. Myshkin's role in this dynamic is particularly compelling. Unlike the other characters, he strives to rise above the constraints of societal norms and personal desires. His decisions are guided by a moral compass that prioritizes compassion and forgiveness over self-interest. Yet even he is not immune to the limitations of human agency. His goodness, while genuine, is not always effective. His attempts to help others often backfire, leading to outcomes that are at odds with his intentions. This paradox highlights the difficulty of navigating a flawed world while remaining true to one's principles. It also raises the question of whether true goodness is possible or even desirable in a society that does not value it. Dostoevsky's insights into goodness, morality, and free will are both timeless and unsettling. They challenge readers to reflect on their own values and the societal structures that shape their behavior. Myshkin's story is not just a critique of 19th century Russian society. It is a commentary on the human condition itself. In portraying goodness as a liability, Dostoevsky forces us to confront the ways in which our own world punishes virtue and rewards selfishness. In exposing the contradictions of morality, he reveals the gap between the ideals we claim to uphold and the realities of our actions. And in exploring the weight of free will, he reminds us of the complexities and limitations of human agency. These themes resonate in countless ways, from the personal to the political. On an individual level, they invite us to examine how we treat those who embody kindness and sincerity. Do we celebrate their virtues? Or do we exploit and dismiss them as Myshkin is exploited and dismissed? On a broader scale, they challenge us to consider how our societal structures reward certain behaviors while marginalizing others. Are we creating a world that values compassion and integrity, or one that prioritizes power and ambition at the expense of these qualities? Ultimately, Dostoevsky's insights in The Idiot are a call to action. They urge us to rethink our assumptions about morality and to strive for a deeper understanding of what it means to be good in a complex and often unforgiving world. Myshkin's story, though tragic, is not without hope. It serves as a reminder that while goodness may be a liability, it is also a necessity and ideal worth pursuing even in the face of overwhelming odds. In today's hyper-competitive, fast-paced society, the story of Prince Myshkin and Dostoevsky's The Idiot feels more relevant than ever. The novel's exploration of goodness, vulnerability, and societal rejection resonates with the challenges faced by individuals who strive to uphold their moral values in environments that often reward cunning and self-interest over sincerity and kindness. Myshkin's experiences serve as a mirror for contemporary life, highlighting how acts of kindness, honesty, and compassion are frequently dismissed or misunderstood in modern contexts. Take the workplace. For example, in many professional settings, collaboration and fairness are often overshadowed by cutthroat competition. A colleague who prioritizes team success over personal gain may be labeled as naive or passive, their contributions undervalued in favor of more aggressive, self-promoting behavior. Consider the archetype of the go-getter who pushes boundaries, takes credit, and asserts dominance in meetings, while their assertiveness is praised. The quieter team player who works behind the scenes to ensure everyone succeeds might go unnoticed or, worse, be perceived as lacking ambition. This dynamic is eerily similar to Myshkin's interactions with those around him. His efforts to help others and promote harmony are not celebrated but exploited. His selflessness mistaken for weakness. Modern workplaces often reward traits that align with Rogosin's ambition and disregard those reflective of Myshkin's compassion. In personal relationships, the parallels are just as striking. Vulnerability and honesty, cornerstones of meaningful connections, are sometimes met with suspicion or undervaluation. In a world where social media and curated personas dominate, revealing one's true self can feel risky. Someone who openly expresses their feelings or forgives easily might be seen as too trusting, leaving themselves open to manipulation or heartbreak. For instance, imagine a friend who consistently forgives betrayals in the hope of salvaging a relationship. Instead of being appreciated for their resilience and emotional depth, they might be judged as lacking self-respect. This scenario reflects Nastasia's reaction to Myshkin's love in The Idiot. She cannot accept his sincerity, interpreting it as a challenge to her self-image and a judgment of her perceived flaws. In both cases, genuine kindness and vulnerability are not met with reciprocal openness, but with skepticism and rejection. Another modern context where Myshkin's story finds resonance is the societal obsession with success and appearance. In a culture that often equates worth with wealth, power, and social standing, individuals who prioritize moral values over material gains are frequently sidelined. Think of activists, teachers, or social workers who dedicate their lives to causes that improve others' well-being but receive minimal recognition or compensation for their efforts. Their work is vital, yet their refusal to conform to society's metrics of success can make them appear out of place or undervalued. This mirrors how Myshkin, despite his moral clarity, is treated as an anomaly in the materialistic and self-serving world of 19th-century Russian society. His disdain for wealth as a means of status or control confounds those who view material success as the ultimate goal. The family dynamic in The Idiot also has modern equivalents. Myshkin's relatives, upon discovering his inheritance, swarm around him, seeking to benefit from his newfound wealth. This behavior is emblematic of relationships where financial gain or power dynamics take precedence over genuine connection. In today's world, We often hear stories of families torn apart by disputes over money or inheritance, where acts of generosity are met with entitlement rather than gratitude. For instance, a sibling who offers financial support to struggling family members might find themselves treated as a perpetual resource rather than as an individual deserving respect and reciprocity. Myshkin's willingness to help his relatives, despite their transparent exploitation, reflects the challenges faced by those who prioritize familial bonds over self-protection. On a larger scale, Myshkin's story touches on the societal struggle to reconcile idealism with practicality. Political and social movements often grapple with this tension. Leaders who champion compassion, equity, and forgiveness can be dismissed as unrealistic or ineffective in a world that demands quick results and pragmatic solutions. Consider debates around restorative justice versus punitive justice. Advocates for restorative approaches often face criticism for being soft on crime, even though their methods aim to address root causes and promote long-term healing. Similarly, Myshkin's efforts to forgive and uplift others are seen as impractical. His refusal to engage in confrontation viewed as a lack of resolve. The tension between idealism and pragmatism is a recurring theme in both The Idiot and modern societal discourse. Moreover, Myshkin's experiences highlight the cost of standing out in a society that values conformity. His unwavering adherence to his principles makes him an outsider, someone who cannot be fully understood or accepted by those around him. This phenomenon is not unique to Dostoevsky's era. Today, individuals who challenge societal norms or reject conventional paths often face similar isolation. For example, someone who chooses a minimalist lifestyle in a consumer-driven culture might be seen as eccentric or out of touch. Yet their decision, like Myshkin's, stems from a deliberate rejection of values they see as shallow or harmful. The social isolation that often accompanies such choices is a reminder of how difficult it can be to live authentically in a world that prizes conformity. Dostoevsky's insights into the human condition also extend to the way people respond to moral challenges. Myshkin's presence forces those around him to confront their own values and choices, often leading to discomfort or hostility. In modern terms, this can be likened to the reaction people have to individuals who live with exceptional integrity. A whistleblower, for instance, who exposes corruption in their organization might be celebrated for their bravery, but also ostracized for disrupting the status quo. Their actions, like Myshkin's, highlight uncomfortable truths about the systems they inhabit, prompting admiration and resentment in equal measure. This duality reflects the complexity of human responses to morality and change. Another layer of modern relevance lies in the way Myshkin's story underscores the difficulty of maintaining one's principles in a flawed world. His struggles resonate with anyone who has ever faced the choice between staying true to their values and adapting to societal expectations. Whether it's a student refusing to cheat on an exam despite peer pressure, or a professional standing up against unethical practices in their workplace, the tension between personal integrity and external pressures is universal. Myshkin's unwavering commitment to goodness serves as both an inspiration and a cautionary tale, illustrating the costs and rewards of choosing the harder, more principled path. Ultimately, Myshkin's story is a timeless reflection on the challenges of living authentically in a world that often rejects authenticity. His experiences remind us that goodness, while admirable, is not always understood or valued. Yet they also highlight the enduring importance of compassion, honesty, and resilience. In a society that frequently prioritizes success over substance, Myshkin's journey encourages us to reconsider what it means to lead a meaningful life. His story is not just a critique of 19th-century Russian society, but a universal exploration of the human condition, one that continues to resonate in the complexities of our modern world. Imagine a modern-day Myshkin in the form of a dedicated teacher who sacrifices personal time and energy to ensure the success of their students. This teacher stays after school to tutor struggling learners, spends weekends preparing engaging lessons, and even reaches into their own pocket to buy supplies for children in need. To some, this level of dedication is inspiring. Parents may praise the teacher's commitment, calling them a hero who truly cares about their students' futures. Colleagues may look up to their passion and selflessness as a model of what education should be. However, for others, this same behavior might provoke criticism. Some parents may view the teacher's involvement as overstepping boundaries, perhaps interfering with their parenting choices. Colleagues might resent them, feeling that their extra effort sets unrealistic expectations for others in the profession. Administration might see their behavior as impractical, questioning why someone would go so far when the system doesn't reward such efforts. This teacher, like Myshkin, becomes a polarizing figure. Their compassion, intended to uplift and support others, unintentionally exposes the flaws and limitations in the system around them. Their efforts reveal the gaps in institutional support for students and highlight the complacency of others who might prefer to avoid taking on additional burdens. Just as Myshkin's goodness forces those around him to confront their own shortcomings, this teacher's behavior can make others uncomfortable by drawing attention to what they are not doing. The cost of such compassion is significant. The teacher may face burnout, sacrificing their own mental and physical well-being in the pursuit of helping others. They might struggle to maintain boundaries, finding themselves constantly available to students and families who come to rely on their generosity. Over time, this imbalance can lead to resentment or exhaustion, as the teacher feels unappreciated or unsupported despite their efforts. Similarly, Myshkin's compassion leads him to take on the burdens of others without considering the toll it takes on his own health and happiness. His desire to save those around him, from Nastasia to Rogozin, leaves him vulnerable to manipulation and emotional devastation. Another example of the cost of compassion can be seen in personal relationships. Picture a friend who is always there for others, the one who listens without judgment, offers advice, and puts their own needs aside to support those they care about. This person is admired for their kindness and reliability, yet their selflessness often goes unnoticed or unappreciated. Friends may begin to take their availability for granted, expecting them to always say yes without acknowledging the sacrifices involved. Over time, this friend might start to feel used or undervalued. Their acts of kindness no longer recognized as extraordinary but rather expected as the norm. This mirrors Myshkin's experience, as his generosity and willingness to forgive are taken for granted by those who exploit him for financial or emotional gain. His goodness becomes a double-edged sword, a source of both admiration and exploitation. The dynamics of compassion are not limited to individual relationships, but also play out on a societal level. Consider the example of healthcare workers during a crisis, such as a pandemic. Nurses and doctors who go above and beyond to care for their patients are often celebrated as heroes. Yet they also bear the brunt of systemic failures. Understaffing, lack of resources, and long hours push them to their limits, forcing them to compensate for gaps in the healthcare system. Their compassion and commitment to saving lives become both their greatest strength and their greatest vulnerability. They face physical exhaustion, emotional trauma, and even criticism from those who question their methods or decisions. This mirrors the way Myshkin's compassion leads him into situations where his intentions are noble, but the outcomes are beyond his control. His desire to help others often leaves him entangled in their chaos, unable to protect himself from the consequences. One of the most striking aspects of compassion, as illustrated in The Idiot and these modern examples, is its potential to provoke suspicion. Myshkin's sincerity is met with skepticism by many of the characters in the novel, who cannot believe that someone could be so selfless without ulterior motives. Similarly, in today's world, acts of kindness are sometimes viewed with distrust. A coworker who offers help without expecting anything in return might be met with questions about their true intentions. Are they trying to gain favor with the boss? Do they have a hidden agenda? This suspicion stems from a societal mindset that values competition over collaboration, making genuine compassion seem out of place or even threatening. In the realm of activism, this dynamic is especially pronounced. Activists who fight for social justice, environmental protection, or humanitarian causes often face backlash despite their noble intentions. Their efforts to create positive change are met with resistance from those who feel threatened by the implications of their work. For example, An activist advocating for fair labor practices might be accused of being anti-business, even though their goal is to improve conditions for workers. Their compassion for others becomes a source of controversy, dividing public opinion and placing them under intense scrutiny. This parallels Myshkin's role as a disruptor in the novel, where his presence challenges the status quo and forces characters to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves and their society. The cost of compassion is also evident in the realm of parenting. A parent who prioritizes their child's emotional well-being, spending hours listening, understanding, and guiding them, might be seen as overindulgent or too lenient by others. This parent might face criticism from relatives or friends who believe that discipline and toughness are more effective approaches. Yet, the emotional investment of such a parent can create a strong bond with their child, fostering a relationship built on trust and mutual respect. This type of parenting mirrors Myshkin's approach to relationships, where he prioritizes understanding and forgiveness over judgment or control. However, just as Myshkin faces challenges in navigating the complexities of human nature, such a parent might struggle to strike a balance between compassion and boundaries. Ultimately, these anecdotes highlight the dual nature of compassion. While it has the power to transform lives and inspire others, it also carries significant risks and challenges. Compassion often demands sacrifices, leaving those who practice it vulnerable to burnout, exploitation, and misunderstanding. Myshkin's story serves as a poignant reminder of these realities, illustrating the delicate balance between selflessness and self-preservation. His experiences encourage us to reflect on the ways we value and respond to compassion in our own lives, urging us to recognize and support those who strive to make the world a kinder place, even at great personal cost. Nastasia Filipovna's tumultuous relationships with Rogozin and Myshkin lie at the heart of Dostoevsky's The Idiot, weaving a tragic love triangle that exposes the destructive power of unresolved trauma and the complexities of human emotion. Her story resonates because it mirrors countless real-world situations where love, passion, and instability collide, leaving those involved trapped in cycles of heartbreak and confusion. This triangle is not just about love, it is a reflection of deeper struggles with self-worth, identity, and the inability to escape one's past. Nastasia is a deeply damaged character, shaped by the abuse and exploitation she endured at the hands of Totsky, a wealthy manipulator who groomed her from a young age. Her sense of self is warped, and she views herself as tainted and unworthy of genuine love. This internalized shame drives much of her erratic behavior, including her relationships with Rogozin and Myshkin. On one hand, she craves redemption and stability, which Myshkin offers with his unconditional compassion. On the other hand, she is drawn to the intensity and chaos of Rogozin's obsessive love, which seems to mirror the turmoil within her own soul. This push and pull between the two men creates a volatile dynamic that ultimately leads to tragedy. In Myshkin, Nastasia finds a vision of what her life could have been if she had not been scarred by her past. His love for her is pure and selfless, free from the possessiveness and aggression that define Rogozin's feelings. Myshkin sees Nastasia not as a fallen woman or a damaged person, but as someone worthy of love and redemption. His proposal to marry her is not based on desire, but on a sincere belief that he can save her from her suffering. Yet, this very purity is what makes his love so difficult for Nastasia to accept. She cannot reconcile her self-loathing with the idea that someone as good as Myshkin could truly love her. His compassion feels like a judgment, a reminder of her perceived unworthiness, and she rejects him not because she doubts his sincerity, but because she cannot face the reflection of her own flaws in his unyielding goodness. Rogozin, in stark contrast, offers a love that is raw, possessive, and destructive. His passion for Nastasia is all-consuming, filled with jealousy and a need to dominate her. Unlike Myshkin's love, which seeks to heal and uplift, Rogozin's love seeks to control and consume. He sees Nastasia as both an object of worship and a source of torment, and his inability to reconcile these conflicting emotions leads him to violent extremes. Nastasia, for her part, is drawn to Rogozin's intensity, perhaps because it aligns with her own chaotic inner world. His obsession validates her belief that she is only deserving of love that is fraught with pain and instability. In many ways, Rogosin reflects the darker aspects of Nastasia's psyche, while Myshkin represents the light she feels incapable of reaching. This triangle of relationships mirrors real-life situations where individuals are torn between two contrasting forms of love, one that offers stability but lacks passion, and another that is thrilling but fraught with pain. Imagine a friend who is caught between two romantic partners, one who is kind, supportive, and dependable but fails to ignite deep emotional excitement, and another who is magnetic, unpredictable, and emotionally volatile. The allure of the latter often stems from its intensity, even when it is clearly unsustainable. Similarly, Nastasia oscillates between Myshkin and Rogosin, unable to fully commit to either because neither can completely address the contradictions within her own heart and mind. The tragic outcome of this love triangle is foreshadowed throughout the novel, as Nastasia's decisions become increasingly self-destructive. Despite moments of clarity where she seems poised to accept Myshkin's love and the stability it promises, she repeatedly returns to Rogosin, as if drawn by an invisible force she cannot resist. Her final rejection of Myshkin on their wedding day, running away with Rogosin instead, seals her fate. Rogosin's jealousy and possessiveness reach their inevitable conclusion when he murders Nastasia in a fit of rage, unable to reconcile his love for her with the torment she causes him. This act of violence is the ultimate expression of Rogosin's destructive passion, and it leaves both him and Myshkin shattered. Myshkin's response to Nastasia's death and Rogosin's crime is emblematic of his character's unyielding compassion. Instead of condemning Rogosin, he stays by his side, comforting him and sharing in his grief. This moment encapsulates the central tension of Myshkin's role in the novel, his inability to abandon his moral ideals, even when faced with the most horrific of circumstances. His forgiveness of Rogosin is both profoundly moving and deeply tragic, as it underscores the futility of his attempts to bring peace and healing to those around him. The tragedy of this love triangle lies not only in its outcome but also in its inevitability. Each character is trapped by their own nature and circumstances, unable to break free from the patterns that define their lives. Nastasia's trauma and self-loathing prevent her from accepting the stability and redemption Myshkin offers. Rogosin's obsessive love blinds him to the harm he causes, both to Nastasia and to himself. Myshkin's idealism and refusal to assert his own needs leave him powerless to change the course of events. Together, they form a tragic tableau that reflects the complexities of human relationships and the ways in which love can both uplift and destroy. Dostoevsky's portrayal of this love triangle also serves as a broader commentary on the nature of love itself. Through Nastasia, Rogosin, and Myshkin, he explores the different forms love can take: selfless, possessive, redemptive, destructive, and the ways in which these forms interact and conflict with one another. He shows how love, even in its most noble and selfless manifestations, is not immune to the flaws and contradictions of human nature. Myshkin's love for Nastasia, while pure, cannot save her from herself. Rogosin's love, though intense, is ultimately corrosive. Nastasia's love, if it can even be called that, is so entangled with her own pain and guilt that it becomes a source of her downfall rather than her salvation. In the end, the tragic love triangle of The Idiot is not just a story about three individuals, but a reflection of the broader struggles that define human relationships. It captures the tension between hope and despair, selflessness and selfishness, stability and chaos. It reminds us that love is rarely simple and that the forces that draw people together can also tear them apart. Through Nastasia, Rogosin, and Myshkin, Dostoevsky paints a portrait of love that is as beautiful as it is devastating, a reminder of both its transformative power and its potential for destruction. Dostoevsky's The Idiot doesn't hand its readers easy solutions or neatly wrapped conclusions, but it provides lessons that resonate deeply with human experience. The novel challenges us to think critically about the value of kindness, the complexities of human nature, and the importance of balancing compassion with self-respect. These lessons remain relevant, offering guidance on how to navigate a world that often seems indifferent to morality and vulnerability. One of the most profound lessons in The Idiot is the importance of balance. Prince Myshkin's story demonstrates that kindness and compassion, while essential virtues, are not enough on their own. They must be tempered with wisdom and self-respect to be sustainable. Myshkin's unyielding goodness makes him a target for exploitation and manipulation. His refusal to recognize the malice or self-interest of those around him, his inability to set limits on his generosity ultimately leads to his downfall. This lesson is as applicable today as it was in Dostoevsky's time. Consider someone in a modern workplace who always volunteers for additional tasks, staying late to help colleagues and sacrificing their own time to ensure everything runs smoothly. While their efforts might be appreciated at first, this kind of selflessness can quickly be taken for granted. Colleagues might start to rely on them too heavily, and supervisors might overlook their contributions, assuming they will always step up. Without boundaries, this person risks burnout and resentment, much like Myshkin, whose kindness becomes a double-edged sword. Understanding human nature is another critical lesson that emerges from the novel. Dostoevsky portrays his characters as deeply flawed and complex, often torn between their better selves and darker impulses. This duality is particularly evident in characters like Nastasia Filipovna and Rogozin, whose actions oscillate between moments of genuine vulnerability and acts of destruction. Recognizing this complexity in others and in ourselves can help us navigate relationships with greater empathy and insight. For instance, when dealing with a friend who seems unreliable or contradictory, understanding the underlying reasons for their behavior can foster compassion without enabling harmful patterns. Myshkin's inability to grasp this nuance in others leads him to approach everyone with the same unconditional trust, making him ill-equipped to deal with the deceit and chaos that surround him. His lack of discernment highlights the need to balance empathy with critical thinking. Staying true to one's principles while remaining pragmatic is another vital lesson from The Idiot. Myshkin's tragedy underscores the importance of not confusing goodness with passivity. Being kind does not mean being a doormat, and setting boundaries is not incompatible with compassion. Myshkin's reluctance to assert himself or protect his own interests leaves him vulnerable, diminishing his ability to make a lasting positive impact. This lesson is especially relevant in personal relationships, where maintaining a balance between generosity and self-respect is crucial. Imagine someone in a romantic partnership who always compromises their own needs to accommodate their partner. While this might seem noble, it can lead to an unhealthy dynamic where one person's kindness is taken for granted or even exploited. Learning to say no when necessary and to advocate for oneself is a form of kindness toward oneself. The importance of setting boundaries extends beyond personal relationships into broader societal contexts. In activism, for example, those who fight for social justice or humanitarian causes often struggle with the tension between their ideals and the practical limits of their capacity. Overcommitting to a cause, no matter how noble, can lead to exhaustion and diminished effectiveness. Activists who learn to balance their passion with self-care and strategic planning are often better equipped to sustain their efforts and achieve meaningful change. Myshkin's failure to establish such boundaries serves as a cautionary tale, reminding us that even the most selfless intentions require structure and foresight to succeed. Dostoevsky also teaches us that understanding and accepting the complexity of human nature can lead to greater resilience. Life is messy, and people are unpredictable. Expecting perfection from ourselves or others is a recipe for disappointment. Instead, recognizing that everyone is a mix of strengths and weaknesses allows for more realistic and compassionate interactions. This is particularly important in family dynamics, where relationships are often fraught with conflicting emotions and expectations. Myshkin's interactions with his relatives, who see him primarily as a source of financial gain, illustrate the difficulties of navigating familial relationships when motives are mixed. Learning to accept the imperfections in those closest to us while maintaining healthy boundaries can lead to more fulfilling connections. Another modern application of Dostoevsky's lessons lies in the realm of leadership. A good leader, like a good person, must balance empathy with decisiveness. Myshkin's failure to assert himself or make firm decisions in critical moments reflects the dangers of excessive passivity. A leader who prioritizes kindness to the exclusion of all else might struggle to make tough choices, potentially undermining their ability to lead effectively. Conversely, a leader who combines compassion with clear boundaries and a strong sense of purpose is more likely to inspire trust and respect. This balance is evident in successful managers who can listen to their team's concerns while still maintaining authority and focus. Myshkin's inability to strike this balance leaves him isolated and ineffective, underscoring the need for both heart and backbone in navigating complex situations. The lessons of the idiot also extend to the broader societal level, particularly in how we value and respond to acts of kindness. Modern culture often glorifies ambition and individual achievement, sometimes at the expense of community and empathy. People who embody Myshkin's ideals, those who prioritize the well-being of others over personal gain, are often seen as anomalies or even as liabilities in competitive environments. Yet these individuals play a crucial role in fostering connection and healing within their communities. Recognizing and supporting such individuals requires a shift in cultural values, one that embraces collaboration and mutual care as strengths rather than weaknesses. Finally, Dostoevsky challenges us to think about the long-term impact of our actions and choices. Myshkin's story, though tragic, leaves a lasting impression on those around him. His presence forces others to confront their own values and shortcomings, even if they are unable or unwilling to change. This reminds us that even when our efforts seem futile, the seeds of compassion we plant may bear fruit in ways we cannot foresee. In everyday life, small acts of kindness, a genuine compliment, a helping hand, a moment of patience can have ripple effects that extend far beyond what we can measure. Myshkin's legacy lies not in his immediate success, but in the way he challenges those around him to reflect on their own humanity. In summary, the idiot teaches us that while kindness and compassion are vital, they must be paired with self-respect and discernment to thrive in a complex world. Understanding human nature and embracing its contradictions can foster deeper relationships and greater resilience. Setting boundaries and staying true to one's principles are essential for navigating the challenges of life without losing oneself. Dostoevsky's insights remind us that goodness is not about perfection or martyrdom, but about striving to balance empathy with strength, idealism with pragmatism, and selflessness with self-care. These lessons, though rooted in 19th century Russia, continue to resonate in the complexities of modern life, offering timeless guidance for anyone seeking to live with purpose and integrity. Fyodor Dostoevsky's The Idiot endures as a timeless masterpiece, compelling readers to examine the tensions between morality, society, and human imperfection. At the center of the novel lies Prince Myshkin, a figure of profound goodness who is ill-suited for the world he inhabits. His story is a tragedy, not because his ideals are inherently flawed, but because they clash so sharply with the harsh realities of human nature and societal structures. Through Myshkin's journey, Dostoevsky offers an unflinching exploration of what it means to live authentically in a world that often values pragmatism over virtue. The concept of a hero too good for the world raises questions that resonate far beyond the novel's pages. Myshkin's goodness is not passive or superficial, it is rooted in a deep compassion for others and a genuine desire to uplift those around him. Yet, this very purity alienates him. He becomes a mirror, reflecting the insecurities, flaws, and moral contradictions of those he encounters. His presence forces people to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves, and in doing so, he inadvertently provokes their resentment, suspicion, or outright hostility. This dynamic illustrates a broader societal tendency, the marginalization of those who challenge the status quo by embodying values that others aspire to but fail to practice. Dostoevsky's treatment of Myshkin forces us to confront the question of whether society has room for such uncompromising goodness. Myshkin's failure to thrive is not a failure of his character but a failure of the world to accommodate someone like him. His idealism and selflessness expose the greed, selfishness, and pettiness that permeate human interactions. This critique extends to modern contexts, where individuals who prioritize kindness and collaboration often find themselves at odds with environments that reward competition and self-interest. A workplace that values metrics over people, a social system that prioritizes profit over equity, or a culture that equates vulnerability with weakness all reflect the same underlying tension that the idiot explores. Dostoevsky's portrayal of goodness also delves into its limitations. Myshkin's inability to assert himself or navigate the complexities of human relationships undermines his efforts to bring positive change. He is not naive in the traditional sense. He understands the pain and suffering of others with a depth that few characters in the novel can match. However, his refusal or inability to impose his will or set boundaries leaves him powerless to counter the chaos around him. This raises an unsettling question. Is goodness alone enough to make a difference? Or does it require the strength and clarity to act decisively in a flawed world? In examining Myshkin's shortcomings, Dostoevsky does not diminish the value of goodness. Rather, he challenges us to think critically about how it can be sustained and applied in ways that are both effective and resilient. Myshkin's tragedy lies in his lack of balance. His compassion is boundless, but it is not tempered by pragmatism or self-preservation. He forgives without limit, loves without condition, and sacrifices without hesitation. Yet these virtues are also his undoing. The lesson here is not that goodness is futile, but that it must be paired with strength and discernment to survive in a world that often seeks to exploit it. This need for balance extends to all aspects of life. Kindness and compassion must coexist with self-respect and boundaries. Idealism must be grounded in realism. A person who aspires to live morally cannot afford to ignore the complexities of human nature or the structural forces that shape society. Dostoevsky's insight into this dynamic is particularly relevant today, as individuals and communities grapple with the challenges of creating meaningful change in systems that resist it. Whether in activism, relationships, or personal growth, the pursuit of goodness must account for the realities of power, conflict, and compromise. The enduring power of the idiot lies in its ability to provoke reflection. It does not provide easy answers or tidy resolutions, but instead invites readers to wrestle with its questions long after they have turned the final page. Are good people truly idiots? As the title suggests, Myshkin's story complicates this idea. His goodness is not foolish, but it is vulnerable in a world that often equates survival with self-interest. His struggles highlight the tension between individual morality and societal norms, between personal integrity and the compromises demanded by life. Consider the parallels in modern life. A whistleblower who exposes corruption might be hailed as a hero by some but vilified by others, their moral courage overshadowed by the disruption they cause. A social worker who dedicates their life to helping others might face burnout or financial instability in a system that undervalues their contributions. Even small acts of kindness, a stranger helping another without expectation of reward, can be met with suspicion in a culture that often questions altruism. These examples reflect the same dynamic at play in Myshkin's interactions with those around him. The world admires goodness in theory but struggles to accept or support it in practice. Yet, despite its critique of society's treatment of goodness, The Idiot is not without hope. Myshkin's impact, though subtle and often unacknowledged, is profound. He leaves an indelible mark on the lives of those he touches, challenging them to reconsider their values and actions. Even his greatest failures, his inability to save Nastasia Filipovna, his forgiveness of Rogosin, carry a quiet dignity that speaks to the transformative power of compassion. Myshkin's legacy is not measured in conventional success, but in the questions he raises and the seeds of change he plants in the hearts of others. Dostoevsky's exploration of morality in The Idiot ultimately underscores the complexity of the human condition. Goodness, in its purest form, is both inspiring and destabilizing. It reveals the best and worst in people, illuminating the potential for both redemption and destruction. Myshkin's story serves as a reminder that the pursuit of virtue is neither easy nor straightforward, but it is deeply meaningful. His struggles challenge us to reflect on our own choices, to consider how we navigate the tension between our ideals and the realities of the world. In the end, The Idiot is not just a story about a man who is too good for his time. It is a meditation on the timeless struggle to live authentically in a world that often resists authenticity. Dostoevsky's insights remind us that while goodness alone may not guarantee survival, it remains an essential part of what makes life worth living. The challenge lies in finding the balance between kindness and strength, compassion and clarity, idealism and realism that allows us to thrive without losing sight of our humanity. Through Myshkin's journey, Dostoevsky invites us to confront this challenge and to consider what it means to build a world that values goodness not as a liability but as a strength. And there you have it, the haunting and timeless legacy of Dostoevsky's The Idiot. Prince Myshkin's story may feel distant, rooted in the complexities of 19th century Russia, but its truths are as sharp and relevant as ever. His journey challenges us to ask the hard questions. What kind of world have we created where true goodness can't thrive? Why do we distrust the sincere and reward the cunning? And in our personal lives, how often do we dismiss compassion as weakness instead of seeing it as the ultimate strength? Myshkin's downfall wasn't his goodness. It was the world's inability to understand and support it. His tragedy is our tragedy, a mirror reflecting the flaws not just in society, but in ourselves. Yet, from his story, we also learn the importance of balance. Kindness, when paired with wisdom and boundaries, becomes power. Compassion, when guided by clarity, becomes transformative. The question remains, will we learn from Myshkin's fate? Will we find a way to value goodness not as a liability, but as a force that can heal, inspire, and reshape the world? Or will we, like the characters in The Idiot, continue to dismiss it until it's too late? Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of literature's most profound explorations of morality and humanity. If this video resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories and ideas that shape how we see the world. And now, I leave you with this thought. In a flawed world, can you afford to be good? And if so, how will you balance kindness with strength, compassion with clarity, and idealism with realism? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and above all, stay human.